Lisa.
Lita.
Lita. Oh, I
Yeah.
remember now. I kept looking at that and saying something's not working because I'm an old fart and my vision's bad. But
Oh,
speaking of bad vision, any of you guys watching tonight, welcome to B Cube Press's whenever the heck we feel like it uh, going online. And the reason I say when we feel like it is that we have had the pleasure. Mm, there we go. We have had the pleasure of putting out a book called Post Roe Alternatives. And it is about literally a world without Roe. And it is possibly one of the best books I think we've ever put out. And I can't take credit for it because the credit belongs to people right over here like Lita, Lita, who only had to correct me twice on her name. Um, but and for you, that's probably not that's about an average number.
yeah.
Well, Lita is a teacher down in California, down in near San Jose and that part of the country. And you have you say you put together a flash fiction reading cast.
Mm-hmm. 5 times a year, we have a reading in San Jose and online. So it's hybrid ever since COVID. And it's called Flash Fiction Forum.
Science fiction poems?
No, Flash Fiction Forum.
Oh, class fiction form. Did I tell you I'm hard of hearing too? Well, that is cool. Well, I tell you what, when you're getting, I don't know if you ever signed up for the BQ Press project page.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Well, you just feel free to post whenever you got one coming up and you want people to either see it. Um,
Or submit to it.
yeah, because there's one good thing about not being in it for the money, and that is that we get to share what we like to share. Uh, and so, like you get to write what you want to write. You know, you're not under contract to a big publishing house, I assume.
That's right.
Hey, we can all dream. Uh, but anyway, you wrote a wonderful story for us that I, honest to God, I think I did most of your editing for you. I don't remember. We might have had another editor involved. Do you remember who the first editor that worked with you was?
I think it was a woman, but I'm not sure.
It would have been Karen or Deb, or we have so many good editors. We actually had 9 editors helping put this book together.
Wonderful.
Well, you know, if you need something quickly, like you need a baby, and you only you can either do one woman for 9 months or you get 9 women for a month each. Now I don't know if that works in the birthing process, but it certainly got this book out, uh, and it's got some incredibles. Now tell me about your story, Impossible Choices.
Well, this is factual. It is actually,
It's an essay, correct?
sorry.
It's an essay, not a fiction.
Yeah, it's. I consider it creative nonfiction, I guess you could say, because I tried to put it together in a story-like way, but all the facts are true.
You're never going to get on Fox that way. Uh, the so what about the story? What would our reader what would you want the takeaway from our reader to be?
Well, I think we don't think about the very worst possibilities. The people in the talking professions are very seldom the same people who might, for example, be killing a baby that was born. And that's what this piece is about.
I mean, you're talking about infanticide.
Mm-hmm.
Very common in China, I understand, when they limited the number of children you could have, and so people were killing their little girls.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Before they could find out uh, the gender ahead of time.
and we like to say, well, that's China. They don't value life the way we value life. But the reality of it is, I think any one of us with 20 minutes of prep could pull out enough statistics to tell you just how much we value life in this country. Um, so, what made you come up with this? How did you stumble over these statistics, or how did you find the kind of statistics you talk about?
Well, since the story has to do with infanticide, I thought, well, I'll just look up and see what kind of international statistics there are. And I was astonished to find that the US has a high rate of infanticide compared to other countries. I thought that mostly it would be very poor countries that had a high rate of infanticide. So I was shocked. And so I just looked for it and then looked for a reputable journal whose statistics I could trust.
Now, and not to put a pretty face on it, we're talking about killing babies after they're born.
Hmm. That's right.
I mean, and we're not talking about, this is, this is horrendous concept. So, how did you come to any conclusions linking infanticide numbers to restrictions on abortion?
Well, it seemed to me, and you suggested the title Impossible Choices, which I think was an excellent idea, because when people are faced with being forced into something that they tried not to experience, some of them will do crazy things. Some of them who knew they couldn't handle something, sure enough, they can't handle it. And they react by, destroying what they find impossible to deal with.
Now, when you, yeah, it's just terrible. Now, you've got a very limited amount of time with us tonight. How would you feel about reading your story?
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, how you got anything you want to say to set it up?
I think I've set it up in the story pretty well.
Okay, then I'm going to vanish from the screen. Give it to you.
Okay. Hi, whoever is listening. This is called Impossible Choices. It's hard for the comfortable to fathom the lives of the desperate. That fact presents a huge obstacle when powerful men and women of great or even relative privilege decide the fate of those whose struggles they've never witnessed and may even deny. When I think of Supreme Court justices, Ivy League graduates who've arrived at success, often by way of privilege, imposing their paternalistic theocratic preferences on women who face unbearable choices, I want to retch. Unseen suffering will increase. I'm sure of it. Here's a memory that comes to mind, a report I heard from my father when I was a child. Bear with me, there's a prologue, necessary scene setting. Remember the admonition, eat your vegetables? Think of the starving children in China. My father was a Marine in China at a time when children were starving, visibly and daily. Gangs of ragged orphans with filthy scalps cracked with dirt and crawling with lice stood by the gates of the military compound and begged soldiers, in the few words of English they knew, no mommy, no daddy, no chow chow. The GIs thought it was funny to teach them to add no flight pay, and though it was against the rules, soldiers would slip them chocolate or coins. In the frigid winter, these desperate and abandoned children burrowed into the horse manure piles around town to keep from freezing to death. But each night, some would die of starvation, exposure, or disease. A local man with a horse and cart would come around and throw their bodies on the cart and haul the load of corpses out of the city gates to be burned. Once, in a certain place and time, this was ordinary life. Didn't the world care? Yes, it did, and sent warehouses full of food and clothing, which sat and rotted a mile from destitute children while Chiang Kai-shek's warlords argued over the spoils, over who would get to sell those donated goods. Is it any wonder Mao Zedong won? The war was small then, but still, my father said, the Marines lost about a man a day. One of his friends was on guard duty one night down by the river. He watched a woman come down to the wharf, and right there, she went through labor and gave birth. When she was finished, she lifted the baby up, looked at it, and dropped it in the water. Was it a girl whose future promised suffering and prostitution? Was it the offspring of some GI? I don't know. But the guard was outraged by this murder. He lifted his rifle, aimed, and in a second, her body too tumbled and plopped into the river. Never to be known, retrieved, or avenged, and only remembered in a troubled conversation between buddies. Judge, jury, and executioner. The Marine felt he had done justice. She deserved it. And yet, I think a similar spirit of judgment and punishment inhabits some of those who blithely list alternatives as if to carry a baby to term and go through labor is nothing. A slight problem, easily solved. Yes, easily solved by those with means. Which women most desperately need abortions? Those in extremely unstable situations, unemployed or just scraping by, climbing doggedly with utmost efforts out of poverty, for whom one misstep sends them tumbling back to a grinding existence they hope to escape. How many judges, representatives, or senators have met such people? Those who wield power tend to hobnob with the wealthy and powerful, or at least the settled and secure. Because they themselves face easier choices, they assume everyone else does too, but everyone else doesn't. These decision makers don't know what it's like to be forced between two sad and difficult options. They don't know what it might be like to be completely overwhelmed by impossible choices and yet ignorantly deprive others of their lives, their liberty, and their choice of happiness. Most elite and many comfortable people won't see or hear about the most horrible of cases, but clues emerge. In states where abortion providers are almost impossible to find, clues are already emerging, and they aren't pretty. In the October 2007 issue of World Psychiatry, which is an academic journal, we learned this horrifying fact. Rates of infanticide parallel suicide rates rather than murder rates. The risk of being a homicide victim is highest during the first year of life. Though the U.S. has the highest rates of child homicide, 8 per 100,000 for infants, 2.5 per 100,000 for preschool children. The problem of child homicide transcends national boundaries. These rates of child murder are probably underestimates, the journal says, due to inaccurate coroner rulings and some bodies never being discovered. How horrifying to think that the U.S. already has a high rate of baby killing, of babies born only to be murdered as infants. It's a fact we seldom see acknowledged. Removing the option of abortion can only increase that number. Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Just going ahead talking like I was actually there.
Oh,
Um, let's see. But no, that is very tough. And I'm glad that you wrote it for us because it needed to be part of the stories in the book. And while I gotta believe that it's so hard, I mean, it's hard to read your story, you know. And I remember now reading. You brought back memories of when I was in service in the Philippines. Uh,
mm,
when you went into the base, off of the base into the town, um, you crossed a river, and they called it Shit River
mm,
because it was the open sewer for a town.
mm.
Just and I remember all of those kids that were standing on the bank of the river or swimming in the river, waiting for you to throw coins at them, and they would dive down and get them. And you know, it's a incredibly harsh memory. I mean, I wonder how many of those kids died of disease or had an immune system that impossible.
Mhm.
Um, but in your day job, you teach creative writing, correct?
Mhm.
And the how's the student population these days? Are they eager to write and communicate?
I think they are, but a lot of them have been kind of traumatized by the COVID time. And I think a lot of them are struggling with depression and anxiety, and it isn't very easy for them to talk with each other.
That is true. I mean, I have a 14-year-old granddaughter. You know, she just started high school. Did just freshman year, right? Yeah. I was checking with my wife, who's got her headphones on and ignoring me. Um, but yeah, the idea, the things that we grew up with, study groups, uh, you know, almost don't exist except for those guys that actually have the resources to hold a Zoom meeting. And she pointed out and that teachers are sometimes compensating for this by decreasing the emphasis on homework.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because she told me, and I um, was shocked that she's got 19 missing math assignments, but is still carrying an 87% in her math because the teacher has had to de-emphasize homework because of the difficulties kids have getting together and doing little study groups and stuff. And I told her she could Zoom with me and we'd get her homework done, and she gave me the seriously, Grandpa look. But
Hey, Bob, do you have a physical copy of the book that you could hold up?
oh, a physical copy. Let me see. You know where that bag I set up for you? Why, yes, I do.
Oh, cool. I'd love to see it.
Have has yours not shown up yet?
Not quite yet, no, because I don't have PayPal, so I'm one of the later ones, I think.
Oh, no, I just haven't paid you yet.
Oh,
Uh, the poets are. You're the only non-poet.
oh, oh,
Um,
I like it. Nice.
Yeah, and it's a good sized book. It's you know.
Yeah.
Now, I cheated not to make it an oversized book, but I realized my audience is not. I'm not writing a book that I'm expecting 14-year-olds to read, though
Mhm.
I wish they would. Uh, so I use a 12-point Bookman font.
Nice.
Uh, so that makes it, I could cut 30 pages out of there if I went to a traditional font. But on the other hand, then you're sitting there. I am telling some people, I don't
With a
want you to
magnifying glass. Yeah.
Yeah, I got my reading glasses. I still need my reading glasses to read it, but I like people to read it.
Yeah.
Uh, and so now this is this cover, by the way. Um, while I admitted I did it,
I like it.
um, it was pure accident. I was down to determined to have another cover, and my artist bailed on me.
Oh dear.
Well, I can't blame her. I mean, there's not a lot of money in doing a cover for this. And then I'm uh, all of a sudden just say, well, thought about it. And I popped an image of the Supreme Court on the front cover, um, and I liked it. Then I realized, well, fighting back would had the way the building's structured, it fit real well on there. And then I found this little highlight of a crowd standing in front of it, and I thought that looked good. And then I don't know why, but I've never used this font before, and I love that font.
I like it too.
So, I mean, it's like our 23rd book, 22nd book, something like that.
Amazing.
But you still learn. Well, allow me to, in a little bit of the time we have left, just remind the people who are watching, both of them. Uh, I have no idea how many, because usually you can tell by the chat um, if who's how many are there. But apparently, the chat's either not working or I got nobody chatting. But I get about a tenth of the people show up at the top. So, but we have been doing a protest book ever since Donald Trump. He had that thing where that the red states, who get more votes than the blue states.
Hmm.
Joy. The red states managed to get him elected. And I don't know how long it's been since a Republican has actually won a majority of the votes to get into the presidency. But it's been a long
a while.
And I remember I had a bottle of a good rye whiskey. Now, the next morning, I had half a bottle of good rye whiskey.
Oh dear.
While I shared some of my opinions on him get elected. And then along came Inauguration Day, and I thought by then we would be better, more able to equip. He would calm down, and we could start saying, okay, we didn't really elect a fascist. But no, and so there it was, Inauguration Day, and I just said, heck with it. And I can pop out a flash, 1,500 word story in a half hour. It's like, yeah, okay, let's do it. So I popped one out about a woman who helped sabotage his Bible, his inauguration, by going in there and getting a chemical in changing out his hand cleaner with one chemical and coating the Bible with another one, so that when the two came in contact, there was a flash fire.
Oh God.
And when his hand goes on the Bible, it starts sparking and smoking.
I guess you have an FBI file now.
Possibly. If I don't have I had an Actually, I admit it. I have an FBI file beforehand,
Okay.
and because I do protest, I go out and I protest, and I. But that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But people
Oh,
said you
Bob,
should.
I probably should leave because my husband needs to have a video chat with a doctor.
Well, I think that takes priority. I was just going to say, and that's how BQ Press got started. And so
Wow.
we're glad to have you part of it. We will continue to be the protest people. So
Yay.
thank you and for writing a wonderful story, and take care. And
Thanks,
hope
Bob. Nice to meet you.
and I hope it works well for your husband.
Thank you. Bye bye.